Hello and welcome to the Goldilocks Chair Company, where we're going to undertake the Baby Bear Chair Assembly, brought to you by Epic Rehab, where we want to recognize and develop the value in each of us.
Okay, to begin this task, you'll be timed laying all of the parts onto the parts mat. The time will begin when you remove the first part from the bucket and will end when all of the parts have been correctly placed on the parts mat. Okay? And then after everything has been correctly placed on the parts mat, we'll begin the assembly part of the task. Okay, the time begins now when I remove the first part from the bucket. And it doesn't matter what order you take the parts out from the bucket, as long as they're placed correctly on the parts mat. Okay, and now we're ready for the assembly part of this task. I'm going to be assembling a chair exactly like the one here from the parts that I've laid on the parts mat. I have an instruction manual as well as this labeled chair to guide me in assembling it. I'm going to be timed doing this as fast as I can, starting with step 1. Insert 4 part 1 fittings into the ends of 2A tubes. My A tubes. Okay, so you got part 1 fittings. Like that. Now for step 2. Insert 4 B tubes into the 4 part 1 fitting openings. Here's my 4 B tubes. Part 1 openings. You should now have 2 sub-assemblies like this. Now for step 3. Attach 4 of the part 2 fittings to each of the 4 tube B pipes as shown below. The middle opening of the T should be perpendicular to the B tubes. My part 2 fittings should look like this. Now for step 4, we're going to connect the 2 sub-assemblies by inserting 1 tube E into the 2 part 2 fittings, just like this. Now for step 5. insert another tube E into the other part 2 fittings. You should have a subassembly that looks like this. Now for step 6, we're going to take 2 of the tube C's and insert them in the part 2 fittings above one of the tube E's. Now for step 7, we're going to take the last 2 part 2 fittings and connect them above the tube C's. It's going to look like this. Now for step 8, we're going to insert the short section of tube D into the open part 2 fittings that are attached to tube E. Insert the long section of tube D into the part 2 fittings attached to tube C. Just like that. Same thing to the other side. Now for step 9. We're going to insert the remaining C tubes into the open part 2 fittings, which are attached to tube D. Now for step 10. We're going to take the remaining part 1 fittings and attach them to the C tubes. And we're going to twist them so that the openings are facing each other. Just like that. Okay, now for step 11, our last step. We're going to take the last tube E and attach it to the part 1 fittings above tube C. Here's our chair.